Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're taking a really fascinating and honestly deeply important journey right into the human body. We're unpacking Loving Freedom's research on the true dangers of smoking and what it actually does to your system. Now, look, we hear about the risks all the time, right? But today we're going to visually track exactly how this impacts us, from that very first breath all the way to the long-term biological effects. So get comfortable and let's jump right in. All right, let's dive straight into this core premise. Every single cigarette creates so much more than just smoke. When you inhale, you're exposing your body to over 7,000 different chemicals. And these aren't just harmless passive particles floating around. These are highly active substances that systematically damage your cells, your blood vessels, and your vital organs. It's this continuous, heavy chemical exposure that ultimately shortens life expectancy. It's a full-body event, you guys, not just a localized one. Here's our roadmap for today. We're going to look at the lungs and airways, heart and cellular damage, the brain and nicotine, secondhand smoke exposure, and finally wrap up with the power of quitting. So, part 1, the lungs and airways. Let's talk about that very first inhale. To really grasp what happens after that first breath, we kind of have to look at the microscopic level. Think of your alveoli like millions of tiny, incredibly delicate balloons. Their whole job is to move vital oxygen from the air you breathe directly into your bloodstream. But because they act as this ultimate biological gateway, this is exactly where those inhaled chemicals begin their structural damage. It causes severe inflammation and slowly, steadily, makes it harder and harder to breathe over time. Now, healthy airways actually have their own built-in cleaning crew. They're these tiny hair-like structures called cilia that act like microscopic brooms, constantly sweeping out mucus, dust, and unwanted junk. But cigarette chemicals completely paralyze and destroy these brooms. You're essentially compromising your body's natural defense system, leaving all those harmful particles trapped right inside the tissue to fester. And when that cleaning system completely breaks down and the inflammation just keeps going, we arrive at COPD, or chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. This isn't just a single ailment, it's a whole category that includes chronic bronchitis and emphysema. It shows up as this persistent coughing, wheezing, and a severe shortness of breath that can make even everyday things like walking up a single flight of stairs literally exhausting. And the harsh reality here is that some of this structural damage caused by long-term smoking just can't be reversed. Moving on to part 2, heart and cellular damage. Because, well, it goes way beyond the lungs. Once those chemicals cross over from your lungs and enter the bloodstream, your cardiovascular system takes a massive hit. Smoking drastically increases your risk of heart disease, heart attack, stroke, and blood vessel disease. And why is that? It's because the chemicals physically damage and scar the delicate lining of your blood vessels. This damage acts like a magnet for plaque, rapidly narrowing your arteries. So when your arteries narrow, your heart is forced to work much, much harder just to pump blood. It's essentially like trying to run a marathon while sitting completely still. And we're not just talking about organs here, we're literally talking about your cellular blueprint. Cigarette smoke contains numerous chemicals that are known directly to cause cancer. Over time, this deep systemic exposure can actually damage your DNA. Just think about the gravity of that for a second. Your DNA is the biological instruction manual telling every single cell in your body how to function and reproduce. When you start altering and breaking that source code, you're opening the door wide for abnormal, rapid cell growth. We really need to fundamentally reframe how we think about this habit. The common perception is usually, oh, it's just a lung problem, causing localized damage, maybe a bad cough. But the medical reality is entirely different. Because these chemicals travel through your blood and can alter cellular DNA, tobacco use is linked to cancers in multiple parts of the body, way outside the chest cavity. It affects your entire system. Your heart, your kidneys, your brain, they all depend on healthy blood vessels. And smoking threatens that entire interconnected biological web. Okay, part 3, the brain and nicotine. Let's look at the cycle of addiction. Here's how that addiction loop actually works. Nicotine travels straight up to the brain, directly hitting receptors that activate a powerful reward response, basically reinforcing the behavior with a huge rush of dopamine. But when that fleeting reward fades, a really sharp craving is triggered, and the cycle forcefully repeats itself. Let's be clear, this isn't just a failure of willpower. It is a literal neurological hijacking. The brain structurally adapts to the repeated chemical exposure, literally rewiring itself to demand the very substance that's causing the damage. That's why it's so incredibly difficult to just quit cold turkey. Because this addiction is a profound physiological brain response, your approach to quitting has to match the science. Evidence-based quitting support and approved treatments absolutely make a massive difference. Getting help from healthcare pros for counseling and utilizing medical treatments designed specifically for nicotine dependence dramatically improves your chances of breaking that loop. You do not have to fight a deeply ingrained chemical adaptation with just willpower alone. Let's zoom out for part 4, secondhand smoke exposure and its environmental impact. This is a stark, undeniable fact. There is absolutely no risk-free level of exposure to secondhand tobacco smoke. Zero. Airborne smoke particles don't just stay neatly contained in one little area, they drift and settle, exposing everyone nearby to those exact same 7,000 harmful chemicals we've been tracking through the body. The person smoking isn't the only one affected, and that is exactly why creating and enforcing smoke-free environments in homes, cars, restaurants, and outdoor spaces is just absolutely vital for protecting public health. Which brings us to part 5, and honestly, the most empowering part of this explainer. The power of quitting and bodily restoration. You know, the human body is just remarkably resilient. The exact moment you quit, the whole story changes. Actually, within just 20 minutes of your last cigarette, your heart rate and blood pressure already begin to drop back toward normal levels. The body immediately kicks into recovery mode. Over time, the risk of those severe smoking-related diseases we talked about steadily declines. Your overall health improves, breathing gets easier, your energy returns, and most importantly, your risk of premature death is significantly reduced. It doesn't matter how long you've smoked. It's literally never too late to choose better health and kickstart this physical restoration. Because Loving Freedom's research isn't just about staring at raw data, right? It's about actually applying it to live a better life. It's about taking care of yourself so you can get out there and truly enjoy the world without physical limitations holding you back. Your lungs matter. Your heart matters. Your brain matters. Ultimately, your health is a fundamental part of your freedom. So, what choices are you going to make today to protect your journey? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you next time.